There are many things working against Marvel's Fantastic Four first steps, and so far, chief among them are the reports that the movie is another girl boss fest. But seemingly not content with being in the number 2 spot, Pedro Pascal has reportedly resorted to stealing clothes from his female co-stars and wearing them. Yikes. Let's dive in. We've already seen how Pedro Pascal will go to disturbing lengths to praise his Fantastic Four co-star Vanessa Kirby, in not so many words saying that he is honored to play second fiddle to her because he's all about stunning and brave women, as he's only alive because of them and he seriously doesn't know what he'd do without Vanessa Kirby. To wit, there are videos from public appearances where he was touching her, grabbing her, reportedly because he has social anxiety. Yet even if that is the case, which some has questioned, I find that video really disturbing, and I'm generally not someone who's all that sensitive. As such, I'm not surprised to hear rumors about him touching other female co-stars in a similar fashion. And in the extension of that, I'm not all that surprised about this next piece of news either, though I kind of wish it wasn't so. But reportedly, Pedro Pascal is into stealing his female co-stars' clothes and wearing them. This comes to us from That Park Place and their story. Pedro Pascal wears women's clothes taken from female co-star, according to Dakota Johnson in Fallon interview. The story reads, Pedro Pascal reportedly wears women's clothes taken from his co-stars, according to a recent interview. Pedro Pascal has built a career playing tough, silent types, from smuggling children to safety across post-apocalyptic America to bounty hunting in a galaxy far, far away. But off-screen, his antics are starting to sound less like a Mandalorian and more like a fashion-obsessed roommate who never asks before borrowing. On the June 2nd episode of The Tonight Show starring Jimmy Fallon, amidst the normal backdrop of absolutely no one laughing, materialist star Dakota Johnson casually exposed a rather curious quirk about her co-star Pedro Pascal. Because, as we all know, Pedro Pascal is in absolutely everything. That's why he's overexposed and people are getting fed up with him. And these antics don't make that any better. Anyway, the write-up continues. When Fallon pulled up a photo of the pair attending a 2024 Stevie Nicks concert in London, Johnson immediately pointed to Pedro's attire and dropped the bomb. That's my sweater. He does that a lot, she explained, clearly amused at the memory of Pedro Pascal in women's clothing. He takes my clothes. Fallon, like much of the audience, seemed to think she was joking, but Johnson doubled down. Apparently, the 50-year-old actor is frequently underdressed and raids Johnson's wardrobe when the temperature dips. He's like always underdressed, she added. Well, I mean, he's like wearing a t-shirt and it's cold outside, not like he forgot his pants. Well, give it time. Anyway, the crowd laughed. But this is hardly the first time Pascal's personal behavior has taken center stage, and not in a flattering light. Fans and critics alike are beginning to piece together a pattern of increasingly strange media moments surrounding Pascal. Yeah, I'll co-sign that, because this is not normal, and it makes me real curious about what you'd find if you were to venture into the basement of Pedro Pascal's private residence. At this point, I'd only be halfway surprised if you were to find some Ed Gein shit, though me thinking that may be influenced by recently having taken a deep dive into the Texas Chain Saw Massacre, for a video that the algorithm pretty much ignored, but that you can still see linked to in the description. Anyway, point is, you know how the Texas Chain Saw Massacre is supposedly based on a true story, right? Well, that would be very loosely based, because the actual events didn't even happen in Texas, as the inspiration was Ed Gein, a serial killer with a very, very unhealthy relationship with women. So much so that he wouldn't just dress up in their clothes, he would literally dress in their skin, Leatherface style. Ed Gein is, incidentally, also the inspiration for Norman Bates in Psycho and Jame Gumb in Silence of the Lambs. Now, please note that I am not suggesting that Pedro Pascal actually is some psycho killer. Far from it, that is not my intention at all. Yet his behavior, not just around women, but now also their clothing, is of such a nature that you can't really fault anyone for thinking along those lines. Anyway, let's continue the story. In recent months, he's gone viral for dancing around with a rainbow-colored pole that he licked suggestively at the Last of Us rap party.
I'm gonna lick the stick. I'm gonna lick the stick. Then I'm gonna put it in my butt. Put it in my butt. Put it in my butt.
Encouraged Johnson to launch a paid adult photo site to sell inappropriate photos of herself. That's the first I hear of that, but again, not surprised, kind of fits the pattern. And now, according to Johnson, Pedro Pascal seems to be building an unofficial wardrobe out of borrowed women's clothes. To some fans, it's quirky. To others, it's getting weird. Social media reactions to Johnson's comments have been mixed. While some fans brushed it off as harmless fun between friends, others are asking why a grown man who Disney has invested billions in potential box office revenue in continues to behave like an internet meme in human form. While the Hollywood PR machine spins Pascal as a charming, lovable goofball, his string of eyebrow-raising antics is starting to eclipse his acting career. And when an actor's wardrobe choices generate more headlines than their roles, something's off. Indeed it is. And this reminds me of someone else, in addition to Leatherface, or rather Ed Gein. 10 years ago, fans were also rooting for a Fantastic Four movie to fail, the Fantastic Four movie in question being Josh Trank's Fant Four Stick. Now, that movie was nothing but a rights retainer, made for the sole purpose of keeping the movie rights away from Disney, Marvel, and the MCU, which at the time went from strength to strength, and seemingly could do no wrong. Oh, how times have changed. But anyway, the big problem for that movie, outside of it being a soulless rights retainer, was its chosen director, Josh Trank. It wasn't just that he had a completely unsuitable vision and that he miscast each and every part because of it. He was, seemingly and allegedly, going through an acute mental health crisis at the time of the movie's production, which is why there were recurring rumors about him being both drunk and high as a kite on set, not showing up for filming a number of days, smashing his rented accommodation and then blaming it on his dogs, and having a number of alleged interactions with the fans that were of the unfortunate and possibly DNA-violating kind. And lest we forget, and this is not allegedly, publicly distancing himself from his own movie on the eve of its release. Point is, Josh Trank acted in such a weird and creepy way that he made himself the focal point for all the ire fans had towards the movie. And while the nature of his creepiness differs, I can see Pedro Pascal taking on that mantle for this movie. So Pedro Pascal is not just the new Rachel Zegler, he is also keeping the Josh Trank legacy alive. You know, when they get around to making a new Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie, they could do worse than to cast Pedro Pascal as the new Leatherface. Anyway, let me know your thoughts on all of this in the comments.